Very happy to be with all of you today. Today we are having a special gathering. So this chapter is a pretty celebrated chapter, uh, referred to by many acharyas in many instances. And in within just one chapter, an entire Atman is described. And there are so many lessons, vital lessons for sadhakas in this chapter. Because the character of Priyavratha Maharaj is uh, very exemplary in many ways, positively as well as negatively. So the chapter is divided into two parts majorly. Like one is up to verse number 24, 1 to 24, and then the last, the second part, whatever number of verses. And within the verse number 1 to 24, there are three sections. So I think the first one is 1 to 8 or 1 to 9, and then up to 19, and then 20 to 24, five verses. So we will focus on this 1 to 24. The basic storyline of this chapter is that Priyavratha Maharaj is one of the two sons of Swayambhu Manu. And Swayambhu Manu, his another son is Uttanapa. So Swayambhu Manu wanted to retire, and Uttanapa is already like later on he'll come into picture. But here the situation is that Priyavrat, who was actually a young person, had already taken sannyas because he was not interested in doing anything of the material world. And his spiritual master was Narada, who was a great preacher. So Narada was fully supporting his sannyas, and Swayambhu Manu came and requested Priyavrat to give up his sannyas in the middle and come back and rule the planet. Because he was a fitting one, not just because he was his son, but he was the only fitting candidate available in the entire universe who could be trusted. Because a leader is like, for a leader to be trusted, there are many parameters. It is said he should have competence, he should have knowledge, he should have the ability, managerial leadership ability. Second is said that his relationship should be very good, his vertical and his horizontal relationships. Because if a leader is not accepted by at least the majority of the people in the community, then he might be very good, that's fine, but then if the people's hearts don't resonate with him, then he cannot be accepted. And then he himself should be exemplary. He should not just be knowledgeable and competent, he should not just have relationships, he himself should be of exemplary character. And then fourth is he should be willing to take the responsibility. So they found all these qualities to be there in Priyavratha. Only problem was Priyavratha was not willing to give up the sannyas. And Narada was also instigating him. Yeah, should not give up. It's like, in India they say like pushing the key from behind. So like, then no, you should not give up. Let them say whatever they want to say. So it's a very typical situation in Indian temples where the father is telling the son, please get married. And the mentor is telling, no, stick to brahmacharya ashram. So Priyavrat was following his mentor. So now the situation is that the world needed him. And both were right. In Krishna consciousness, there can be parallelly many rights. That's the beauty of spiritual life. So what to do? So then Brahmaji comes, and Brahmaji requests on behalf of Swayambhu Manu. Actually, Swayambhu Manu himself came on behalf of Brahmaji, because ultimately it is the responsibility of Brahmaji to ensure that the world has a very good leader. So now Brahmaji himself comes, and that was a big thing, because even Narada, it is said like Narada's attitude also when Brahmaji comes is like immediately very, very exemplary. He bows down, and now he is also open to discussion, and he says, okay, let's see what Brahma has to say. And then Brahmaji is smiling, just looking at Priyavratha Maharaj. And by his smile only he is telling that you may be bent upon, or you may be stubborn not to give up sannyas, but I'll also make you give up sannyas. I've come here for that mission. But at the same time, very honestly, very lovingly. So then Brahmaji starts speaking, and he speaks the instructions, spiritual instructions actually. He changes the perspective, the entire perspective only he changes. He brings it to a very, very spiritual paradigm. And then eventually, like, Narada also agrees. Narada, in fact, how do you say, like, encourages that you should, give up sannyas and surrender to the desire of the Supreme Lord, which is manifesting through Brahma. And then Swayambhu Manu is also happy. And then we see that Priyavratha Maharaj renounces renunciation. And we see that Narada also renounces his opinion or his stand. And we find that everyone is happy. So actually the true spirit of renunciation is shown in this chapter, which is to renounce our own opinions and to surrender to the desire of spiritual master and the Supreme Lord, and to surrender to the opportunity to serve, which especially if that is a need of the community or the world at large. So there are many, many more vital lessons. So this was the overall story, the first part. And now we'll read also the individual verses and purports. And Prabhupada practically most of the purports, in each of the purport has written golden statements. So there are many purports of Srila Prabhupada which are like golden purports. And here many, many purports are like that. So the later part of the story also consists of what Priyavratha does after he becomes the ruler of the planet. He becomes the king. And first, the very first teaching of the chapter is that he immediately accepts a wife. So it is said that one should not try to surpass the instructions given in the Shastras. So the Varnashram model of Vedic society is a very, very perfect one. And when one enters a particular ashram, one should accept it in toto, in totality. Like, so if one is entering Grihastha ashram, so one should accept a wife and one should also have kids, because it is explained very beautifully directly in a verse, not just in the purport, that the Grihastha ashram is like a fort, and the Grihastha, the male devotee, he is like the king. And if he has a wife, and if he has kids, and if he has his Grihastha duties like earning money or some responsibilities of dealing with matter, so he is protected actually. Just like a king is protected in a fort. So in India, traditionally the forts, if you see, they are on the hilltop, atop a hill, and like there will be a terrain, quite rough terrain to it. And then there will be walls from different sides. So these walls are like so thick, sometimes they are as thick as like this entire, our entire width of this apartment. This thick walls, often made of rocks, not even of bricks or mortar or cement, solid rocks. And these walls will be like 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet high. And there will be facilities on the top of those walls, inside some holes in these walls, for lights, and for even someone to stay and guard, or someone to even attack someone who's trying to attack the fort. And inside the fort there are so many facilities. It's an ecosystem in itself. Well, people can stay there even for a couple of years without having to go out at all. With supplies, all the groceries, like, even some gardens and some facility to grow food. So there are tunnels and all. So a king was protected very heavily inside such fortress. So Grihastha ashram, it is said, is such a fortress. And Prabhupada explains that the purpose of any ashram, in Varnashrama, the purpose of any ashrama, all the four ashramas, is to control the senses. Either by engaging them according to dharma, or by disengaging them by detachment, based on knowledge. And the purpose of four varnas is to keep the person satisfied and engaged, based on his natural proclivities. So it is said, if one accepts sense gratification offered by Krishna within the boundaries of dharma, one will never fall down. And it is also said that if one acts under the instruction of the Supreme Lord, coming through the spiritual master or superiors, also one will be protected. Even though he may at times give in to the temptations. So this is exactly what happens with Priyavratha. He actually gives in to the temptations. He actually gets carried away with material attachment, so much so that he actually forgets the spiritual life. So in the same canto you also find Bharat Maharaj's story. So that also comes ahead, very beautiful. But both of them were protected. Because Bharat Maharaj had followed the path of dharma based on the Shastras, and Priyavratha Maharaj had followed the path of surrender in spiritual life by following instructions to take up a service which had risk. So there are services which have risks inbuilt in them. Like someone is going, a young devotee is going to the colleges distributing books or preaching. So oftentimes he may get to see scenes which are like, he may not, they may not be so conducive. Still, because just like Hanuman went to search for Sita Maya, he went on a mission for the Lord. And so he was protected despite seeing very, very many unwanted scenes. So he was even wondering in one part of Ramayana that, what am I doing here? Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? And yet he was protected. His conscience was protected. There may be ups and downs, but eventually the person will be protected, internally and externally. Because he surrendered. So if he remains humble and if he tries to depend on the Lord, and despite Maya attacking him thoroughly, eventually he will be protected. So there are many such vital lessons. This was just a synopsis, but many purports of Srila Prabhupada are very enlightening. So let's try to read. Any comments, Prabhu?
Now, did he take sannyas or was he a brahmachari?
So,
Priyavratha.
Priyavratha, yeah, he was a brahmachari.
He was brahmachari, not sannyas.
No, not so.
Yeah, brahmachari.
Okay, you mean to say he had not taken official sannyas?
That was my understanding.
Okay, Prabhupada discusses about sannyas or path of renunciation, so maybe whatever he took. Yeah, but he was like kind of in saffron, was not getting into married life or worldly responsibilities. So maybe he was a brahmachari.
Yeah, brahmachari. Because take sannyas and then give up sannyas, and that's like.
Yeah, that's quite.
He was brahmachari.
Yeah. So text 1. So most of the verses in this fifth canto are actually prose, like they are not recitable, but some are. So we'll begin with that. Text 1. Rajo Vacha Priyavrato Bhagavata Atma Rama Katham Mune Grihe Ramata Yanmula Karma Bandha Parabhava. And you would like to read?
Rajo Vacha
Priyavrato Bhagavata
Atma Rama Katham Mune
Grihe Ramata Yanmula Karma Bandha Parabhava. Anyone else? Rajo Vacha Priyavrato Bhagavata Atma Rama Katham Mune Grihe Ramata Yanmula Karma Bandha Parabhava. Rajavacha. King Parikshit said, Priyavratha, King Priyavratha, Bhagavata, the great devotee, Atma Rama, who takes pleasure in self-realization, Katham, why? Mune, O great sage, Grihe, at home, Aramata, enjoy, Yatamulaha, having which as the root cause, Karma Bandha, the bondage of fruitive activities, Parabhavaha, the defeat of one's human mission. Translation and purport by His Divine English, Isi Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada. King Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, O great sage, why did King Priyavratha, who was a great self-realized devotee of the Lord, remain in household life, which is the root cause of the bondage of karma?
and which defeats the mission of human life. Purport. In the fourth canto, Sri Shukdev Goswami explains that Narada Muni perfectly instructed King Priyavratha about the mission of human life. The mission of human life is to realize oneself and then gradually go back home, back to Godhead. Since Narada Muni instructed the king fully on this subject, why did he again enter household life, which is the main cause of material bondage? Maharaj Parikshit was greatly astonished that King Priyavratha remained in household life, especially since he was not only a self-realized soul, but also a first-class devotee of the Lord. A devotee actually has no attraction for household life, but surprisingly, King Priyavratha enjoyed household life very much. One may argue, why is it wrong to enjoy household life? The reply is that in household life one becomes bound by the results of fruitive activities. The essence of household life is sense enjoyment, and as long as one engrosses his mind in working hard for sense enjoyment, one becomes bound by the reactions of fruitive activities. This ignorance of self-realization is the greatest defeat in human life. The human form of life is specially meant for getting out of the bondage of fruitive activities. But as long as one is forgetful of his life's mission and acts like an ordinary animal, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, he must continue his conditioned life of material existence. Such a life is called Swarupa Vismriti, forgetfulness of one's real constitutional position. Therefore, in the Vedic civilization, one is trained in the very beginning of life as a brahmachari. A brahmachari must execute austerities and refrain from sex life, sex indulgence. Therefore, if one is completely trained in the principles of brahmacharya, he generally does not enter household life. He is then called a Naishtika brahmachari, which indicates total celibacy. King Parikshit was thus astonished that the great King Priyavratha, although trained in the principles of Naishtika brahmacharya, entered household life. The words Bhagavata Atma Rama are very significant in this verse. If one is self-satisfied, as is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is called Bhagavata Atma Rama. There are different types of satisfaction. Karmis are satisfied in their fruitive activities. Jnanis are satisfied to merge into the effulgence of Brahman. And the devotees are satisfied to engage in the Lord's service. The Lord is self-satisfied because he is fully opulent. And one who is satisfied by serving him is called Bhagavata Atma Rama. Manushyanam Sahastreshu. Out of many thousands of persons, one may endeavor for liberation. And of many thousands of persons attempting to become liberated, one may achieve liberation from the anxiety of existence and become self-satisfied. Even that satisfaction, however, is not the ultimate satisfaction. The Jnanis and the Karmis have desires, as do the yogis, but devotees have no desires. Satisfaction in the service of the Lord is called akama, freedom from desire, and this is the ultimate satisfaction. Therefore, Maharaj Parikshit inquired, how could one who was fully satisfied on the highest platform be satisfied with family life? The word parabhava in this verse is also significant. When one is satisfied in family life, he is doomed because he must already have forgotten his relationship with the Lord. Prahlad Maharaj describes how the activities of family life implicate one more and more. Atma patam graham andhakupam. Household life is like a dark well. If one falls into this well, his spiritual death is assured. How Priyavratha Maharaj remained a liberated Paramahamsa even within his family life is described in the next verse. So, quite a strong purport. Yeah. So, in general, for anybody, the household life is actually quite binding. In Hindi, there is a saying, Bahta Pani, Ramta Yogi. So, Bahta Pani means the flowing water, like in a river. And Ramta Yogi means a mendicant who's traveling, like who's always on move. So they say that this water which is always flowing, and this person, this mendicant who is always roaming around, so they always remain pure. So in the Vedic civilization, the grihasthas were given the responsibilities of deity worship or running the temple or the spiritual institutions, and in fact they were the ones who acted as diksha gurus also. Why? Because they stayed at one place. It's difficult for them to move around. They have their job or whatever, agriculture and all, and they have their family, so they can't just move around. So then it is said, okay, they can redirect their attachments to the worship of the deity, to the service of the devotees in the community, like that. And the sannyasis were expected to travel and give spiritual shiksha, give spiritual directions, give spiritual inspirations. So, like yesterday, some of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they were glorifying so wonderfully Vaishika Maharaj. They were saying, I remember one of them said that, we are so proud that you have shown that even a Grihastha devotee can do such wonderful leadership and build community. They were feeling so encouraged by seeing his example. They were saying Prabhupada must be smiling and very pleased. So the other day, His Grace Vijay Prabhu was also mentioning that we can see that such Grihasthas like Vaishika Maharaj, they are above the sex desire. They are transcended. So in Krishna consciousness, that kind of discrimination is actually, it is transcended, or it is at least kind of compensated. Whatever its challenges are, they are overshadowed by the power of bhakti.
Subliminated.
Huh?
Subliminated.
Sublimated.
It means subliminated. It means transformed.
Transformed, yeah. So they are made ineffective by the power of engagement in Krishna consciousness, direct bhakti. And here the mention which is there, that how is it that a person who was already enlightened goes back to household life? It's like he has got the higher taste, and he's still going for the lower one. Why? So, of course, this question is because he did not know the entire context. Like Brahmaji came and requested. It was for the higher mission of serving Krishna's will and accepting some austerity or risk for the sake of service to the world. Like we see Arjuna also was not willing to fight. He said, come on, even if I get this kingdom, will I be able to enjoy it when my hands are tainted with blood? Just to get the post of the ruler, I have to kill so many people. Is it really worth it? We have to make so many women as widows and so many children as orphans just to get to win this war. It's not worth it. He was giving so many arguments which were true, which were logical, which were based on the principles. And yet Krishna said, no, for the highest sake of dharma, you must do this. Because in the long run, that is more important. And you should engage your spirit of fighting in the service of, of course, the Supreme Lord Himself. So here also, eventually what will come out, what will manifest in the pastime is that in order to serve the will of the Supreme Lord, one may sometimes even take risks, one may sometimes even go against his own priorities. And as we said, like real renunciation is to give up one's own opinions. And that will be glorified. So, but here in the purport, Prabhupada is teaching that that best is not to enter the household life. Because one may then get entangled into the fruitive activities. Therefore, even if one enters into household life, one's purpose of life should be to become perfect in spiritual life. Accept wife as a companion on the spiritual journey, and then together both of them, just like yesterday in the affection between Vaishika Maharaj and Nirakula Mataji is easily visible. Like they love Prabhupada, and they were even appreciating each other based on the spiritual principles in the center. So such a relationship is actually not material, actually not that household life which is condemned here, but it is actually the perfection of household life. I saw His Grace Sankashandar Adhikari Prabhu and his good wife. So in Pune, like they come every year. So like when Sankashandar Adhikari Prabhu was told, like, Prabhuji, can you give class today evening on this verse? Immediately they both start discussing. Mataji says, you remember you gave class on this verse like 3 years back in that temple? And then they start discussing like, one time Prabhupada gave the class on this verse, So this is actually a spiritual relationship. So if in any ashram, even in Brahmacharya ashram, It's not like Brahmacharya ashram. Just by the name Brahmacharya ashram is liberated. It's not like that. It's just easier to make spiritual life the priority, or Guru and Krishna the center of that ashram. Otherwise, the purpose and the essence is same. Right? If in either of the ashram, if one can do that, then that's the perfection of being in any ashram. So, another thing Prabhupada explains is if one is satisfied in family life, he's doomed, because then he'll not be looking forward to spiritual life. So one has to himself make it a point that his focus remains, or the source of his happiness remains spiritual engagements, not the material engagements. So this pastime will flow and show why Parikshit Maharaj was asking these questions more. There are 3-4 more verses like that. Let's go ahead. Yeah, for the sake of the time, we'll just read the translations. Anyone like to read next translation?
Devotees are certainly liberated persons. Therefore, O greatest of the Brahmanas, they cannot possibly be absorbed in family affairs.
So Prabhupada explains in the purport, towards the end of the purport, attachment for family affairs and devotional service are incompatible. Therefore, Maharaj Parikshit was somewhat surprised to hear that Maharaj Priyavratha was simultaneously attached to devotional service and to family life. So, bhakti parishanubhava viraktir anyatra cha. It is natural that when one experiences the higher taste in bhakti para isha anubhava. Para isha means, isha anubhava means the spiritual experiences, spiritual realizations, taste of loving Krishna. Para means higher. So by practicing bhakti, when one experiences this higher taste, viraktir anyatra cha. Virakti means natural renunciation. And anyatra means all other types. It's not anya. Anya means some specific other things. Anyatra means everything else. It's like everything else put into one category will not be attractive to the devotee. Like you give a devotee, say some corporate, some company is sending a devotee to some other city and say that, okay, for 3 months we are sending you and we'll give you 5-star hotel stay, free of cost. But you will find that devotee running towards a temple, even the temple may be like some BYS center, maybe like a simple one. He'll rather pay there little bit and stay there. Or you give the devotee like free food or, something like, so he won't like to stay there, right? Or Radhesham gives this example that sometimes like young boys or young brahmacharis, so they are very eager to sit with young girls, right? If they get in a flight or in a train, like if they get seats allotted next to some young girl, they would be very happy to. They would pay extra to go and sit there, right? On the other hand, devotees would run away. Sometimes even if like some seat is allocated to a brahmachari or a young devotee, and all the young girls, young matajis are sitting there, he would rather stand in the train if he doesn't get seat elsewhere, But he would not, or he would exchange that seat, right? Or in India, like sometimes very hot and maximum devotees have got seat in a non-AC compartment, and one devotee has got seat in the AC compartment, but he himself comes voluntarily. So for a devotee, the real austerity is to stay away from devotees and to not be engaged in devotional service. So it's natural, like when the soul experiences the higher taste, the devotee at any cost, right? We know of devotees who are getting even a lot of big salaries, but they would not go away to a place where they are not having the opportunity to serve or to have association. So same thing is asking that he was already experiencing the higher life, So how is it like? It's not even compatible. Why would he go and embrace such a life? Even true devotees are not even eager to accept control, like accept posts and positions. That's another thing. Srila Prabhupada himself, after establishing ISKCON, even after establishing ISKCON successfully, Prabhupada goes to India and Prabhupada writes to many of his godbrothers, talks to them that you please come and head the society now. You are my senior godbrother. You can do better. So many instances Prabhupada did that actually. So, because Prabhupada didn't want to control, he just wanted to serve.
Even when that didn't happen, he gave most of the power of delegation to the GBC. He would even ask, what does the GBC say?
Yeah, true, very true. Yeah. As soon as his disciples were being capable, he saw them, he immediately handed over.
And he would defer to their opinions. Actually.
Right. So sometimes he would take the role of an instructor or a teacher also if they were not doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at most of the times he would just try to act subordinate to them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very, very true. So text 3, you would like to read?
Elevated Mahatmas who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are fully satiated by the shade of those lotus feet. Their consciousness cannot possibly become attached to family members.
Yeah. So one can have affection for the family members and one can act very responsibly. At the same time, one may not have attachment to them, which means just like Dhritarashtra acted out of attachment to Duryodhana. So Duryodhana is proposing something. Duryodhana has some desire. Whether it is right or wrong, whether it is dharmic or adharmic, Dhritarashtra would anyways agree to that because he was attached to his son. On the other hand, Yudhishthira was not attached to Pandavas. So he was very affectionate to them. And if they said something wrong, which would apparently be the best thing to do, like, in feeling of the senses and mind, still he would say no. Because according to Shastra, we should not act like that. So that is the way one should have affection. One should act responsibly, but one should not be attached. Because attachment will lead to bondage. So Duryodhana was attached. Therefore, his acting in the war as a fighter was leading him to bondage. But Arjuna was not attached. He was acting out of love, in fact. So he was not being bound. So even a Grihastha devotee, when he is serving his wife and kids, or is doing his job, but if he's doing for Krishna, for the service, he is seeing that spiritual vision towards the wife and towards the kids, or even towards his possessions, and he's identifying them to be actually belonging to Krishna, then he is not bound. That's the beauty of spiritual life. So spiritual life is like a antivirus. So even if you go in a field full of virus, still you don't get affected. The true spiritualist. We'll just take like a couple of verses more to cover this section. Next, anyone like to read?
The king continued, O great Brahmana, this is my great doubt. How was it possible for a person like King Priyavratha, who was so attached to 5 children in home, to achieve the topmost infallible perfection in Krishna consciousness?
So this is another question. Actually, he got into family life, and then he actually became attached, as we discussed. Like he actually kind of falls down in his consciousness, but then he again came out of it successfully, and again rose up to the highest perfection. So he's saying, how did that happen also? Next one. Actually, one of the reasons Vishwanath Thakur says he is asking this question is because he felt that I also offended a Brahmana. So, like I means Parikshit is thinking like that. So he's feeling that like Saubhari also offended Garuda, and then he entered household life. And I also got invitation from death because I offended a Brahmana. So is it like something like that happened with Priyavratha? That he was already in the topmost position. Again he fell down. And after falling down, what happened? Maybe he, by his good fortune, he again met some great souls and again he got elevated. So he's having all those questions.
Wasn't he also blessed that he would remain a devotee? That he would...
Yes, probably. Yeah, but for the sake of, I think, the pastime show that Parikshit doesn't know anything. He's inquiring plainly without any assumptions. So, yes, Prabhu. Next one.
Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, "What you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent, transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet, and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories, may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired."
Yeah, this is, Prabhupada gives a very excellent purport. Prabhupada says there are two kinds of impediments in devotees' lives which come up. First, he says Vaishnava Aparadh. So when Vaishnava Aparadh comes up, it takes a lot of time for the devotee to get out of it, because he has to really serve the devotees, especially the one who is offended, or by the grace of spiritual master and other devotees, he can come out ultimately by devotee's mercy and by his sincerity. He can then come out, he can repent for it. And another thing Prabhupada says, second reason of a devotee's apparent fault sometimes is Lord's desire, which is transcendental. So he gives examples like Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were demoted, and apparently they became demons, which was quite conscious, but yet it was Lord's desire that they become so.
But what's interesting also with that is they offended Lakshmi.
Yeah. And another example is probably like Chitraketu Maharaj, who just made a critical remark on Lord Shiva, as in to glorify him. But yet Parvati was not very pleased. And so he was also demoted as a demon. But then his bhakti was still kept intact. So yet another example is Bharat Maharaj, who in this canto only he comes up. So he, of course, he also he did a wrong thing by being overly attached to the deer. He could have done his duties and then left him to the perfect arrangement of Krishna in the material nature. Everything coming out from the Supreme Lord is also perfect. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate. But he overly thought himself to be the protector of the deer, and then he got distracted from his spiritual life. As sometimes we may cultivate some people and we may become overly protective, overly caring, and in that we may compromise on our own spiritual life. So then he becomes a deer. At the same time, Krishna protects his consciousness. So he's showing that sometimes it may be Lord's desire to teach a lesson. Prabhupada writes in 2-3 purports there in Bharat Maharaj section that Krishna wanted to teach Bharat Maharaj, and through Bharat Maharaj all of us, that one should be very careful not to cross thresholds like that. So when one is adamant to be distracted, then Krishna also out of love gives him punishment. It is Lord's desire. It was not that he had done some sinful activity. Why would he become an animal? He didn't do any sin. But this was Lord's desire, that he becomes an animal, so that he learns his lesson in such a way that he never falls down again. Even it is said about Chitraketu Maharaj that was Satyoga. So Krishna wanted him to return back to God swiftly, so that Krishna gets his direct association. But according to his general life in Satyoga, it would have taken thousands of years. Now Krishna wanted him to come back quickly. So what Krishna did, he took an opportunity. See, he made a remark, let him get cursed. So instantly he died. He just vanished or died, that is not given description. But he was instantly born a demon, in a very short time. And how was he born? Not as a child. He just came out from the Yajna Kund. Right? They were doing the Yajna, and there's a painting also, PBT painting, he's just popping up. And then within a year he was killed. It took 1 year for... But if you see relatively from Krishna's point of view, very soon he returned back to Godhead. So Krishna got his So this is very transcendental. Another example is in the 10th canto, where Krishna was born to Devaki, and before that many of these kids were killed, right? Devaki's sons. So, and apparently because of Narad Muni's intervention. So Narad Muni is shown as a not so good person, like political person. But it is explained that Narada Muni wanted to deliver all of them because Kamsa didn't even allow Devaki to breastfeed those kids. So later on, when Krishna is born, and after 12 years, when Krishna returns to Mathura, kills Kamsa, and then reunites with Devaki. So Devaki is asking for certain desires to be fulfilled by Krishna. One of the desires was that, my dear son, I never got to see your childhood. The mother loves to see the childhood of a child, because at that time all the activities of the child are very pleasing to the mother, especially. So then Krishna actually gives Devaki an experience of that. It is given in the Garga Samhita. So an entire experience of that, like he takes her in a subtle body, he gives all that experience. And Krishna also later on gives a deity of his own to Rukmini, who is also looking for such experience. So that deity is Udupi Krishna later on. And one of the desires Devaki says to Krishna is, I want to breastfeed those sons. So as a mother, I have mamata or motherly love. So, but they were taken away from me. Now you are Supreme Lord, so why don't you get them? So then Krishna gets them back. So that time when Devaki breastfeeds them, all of them get liberated immediately and they go back to Godhead. Because one of the things which Devaki had done with Krishna as a baby was to breastfeed him. But he was born later. So had she breastfed the sons beforehand, that would not have been Mahaprasad. And Acharya has explained that, but now when they were brought back by Krishna, already Krishna had, drunk her milk. So then it was all Mahaprasad, and that's why they went back to Godhead. And it is said that's why Narad Muni was like kind of doing that. No, this is mind-boggling to hear this. What kind of is it such a big preaching plan? So many of the activities of the great souls may be very difficult to comprehend. What to say when directly Krishna orchestrates a devotee's life? But whenever Krishna orchestrates a devotee's life, if a devotee very happily accepts Tatteno Kampasu Samikshana Bhunjana Evatma Kritam Vipaka Ridva Vapurvir Vidadhana Namaste Jiveta Yo Mukti Pade Sadhai Ridva Vapur, with his heart, body and mind, if he very happily, Namaste means like in a grateful mudra, in a grateful posture and in a grateful intention. Of course, the main thing here is the intent. In a grateful attitude, if one accepts the orchestrations of the Lord given in a devotee's life, then that devotee will stand to receive assured mercy of the Lord. It's not just about going back to Godhead, Prabhupada translates like that, but it's about receiving the topmost mercy of the Lord. Going back to Godhead becomes a very easy thing for such a devotee, because he wins the Lord's heart when he is grateful. He wins the Lord's heart, that whatever you do with me, I know you are, because that shows trust. My dear Lord, I asked you for laddus and you gave me like Karela sabji, but I am very grateful because I know you love me and you know what's best for me. So whatever the Lord arranges in a devotee's life, if a devotee is grateful, smiling, Lord says how much he trusts me. That trust, that faith, that love, that wins over the Lord's heart. And Lord says, you take whatever I have. So Prabhupada explains actually that when Lord's desire, in front of Lord's desire, person should just smilingly accept, not try to retaliate. And if it is Vaishnava Aparadh, then one should try to become humble and like beg forgiveness and endeavor to attract the mercy of devotees. So I think we should stop here because it's late, devotees have to go. So maybe we'll continue next time. It's a very beautiful pastime, and when it actually begins, that conversation between Swayambhu Manu, Narada and Priyavratha. So excellent lessons are there actually. Any Vijay Prabhu, any comments?
One thing is that Bharata, the whole pastime of Bharata Maharaj, in the year, he didn't have association.
Yeah.
If you would have had association, that's another reason. If we offend devotees, that's dangerous. But if we don't have association with devotees, that's also dangerous. If you would have had association, then the devotee would have said, Prabhu, you get too attached to this deer, you want to get on. You haven't had association, so association is also very important. And when we have that association, just don't offend them.
Alone we become hypocritic and together we fight. So quarrel and hypocrisy, that's the two problems. Thank you.
I was appreciating this point that you were making about Prabhupada's willingness to adjust for his god brothers. You're making that point that a devotee isn't even interested in position. Even though there may be like a need to take on the position, generally the person who takes on the position, if they're qualified for it, they're really not so interested in it, but they just see that it's a service which has to be done.
Yeah.
And it's almost painful for them,
Yeah.
but they have to do it. So they kind of accept it as, gratefully, even though, because sometimes what someone would expect to be successful in like material terms is actually the Tatteno Nukampam Susamikshimano principle in the life of a devotee.
Yeah.
Position, respect. If someone is actually cultivating a devotional disposition, these things are really tests. It's not necessarily a reversal. This is the devotee in times of reversal. They actually celebrate it because it's an opportunity to be more dependent on Krishna.
Yeah.
But they feel that if success and respect are coming, they feel it's even more dangerous circumstance, because in those circumstances one can become entitled, or one could become feel like they have some type of liberty which they can take. So that becomes even more dangerous for the devotee. But I was appreciating that point, and how if we're accepting respect, or if we have to accept respect for whatever reason, then it should be accepted. It's not that it shouldn't be pushed away. I was just reading this, because it's Vyasa Puja yesterday. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has this famous Vyasa Puja offering where he's saying, who am I, just some big animal sitting here? And he's saying that if one accepts the position of guru, but then people come along and they say Jai to him, and you say, no, don't say Jai to me, it's a type of duplicity. So if one's in a position where they have to accept respect, it's not that they push it away, but internally they have to see that they don't touch it at all. It's something which they accept, and then they just deliver. So I was just appreciating this point that you were making, and Srila Prabhupada is quite careful to see that everything is going to a spiritual master. But simultaneously, just as another side of what you were saying, is how Srila Prabhupada also had to establish his position.
Right.
At one point, he had to establish, actually, I'm the founder Acharya.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make it very clear, because that was something that needed to be done in order to protect not only his particular batch of disciples, but generations forward could also be protected by, the clarity of these vertical relationships which we're supposed to have.
Yeah. And that is actually humility in its entirety.
Yeah.
So if it is for Krishna service, I don't want to reject also.
Yeah.
I can become the king of the entire world.
Yeah.
Because if that can please and serve Krishna's mission better. So the focus is on Krishna. If the focus is on myself, then yes, the main point is, okay, I would not like to become, or I would like to become. Yeah. So no attachments.
Yeah. Like I know some devotees who specifically try to stay away from management.
Yeah.
But I see that their service is limited, staying away from that management. And if one needs to expand, sometimes one has to accept those circumstances, even if it's painful for them. Even if it's the last thing they want to do.
Yeah, still they will do it. And they'll excel in it, because they want to serve actually.
Yeah.
They may not like it, but they'll excel in it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sure it must have been so difficult for someone like Vaisheshika Maharaj to actually accept all those But yet he is able to see how much they love their Guru and Krishna. So it's like there is that joy also.
Yeah.
And there is that joy to know that, okay, my service as a servant to them is being accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So that joy is there. At the same time, to be highlighted is not what a Vaishnava looks for. He wants Krishna to be highlighted.
Yeah.
There's a verse by Narada Muni. He says, devotees of the Lord do not think that the services they do are actions under their own control, but they are expressions of Krishna's supreme mercy. So this is how the devotee thinks, it's Krishna's mercy. It's not me, it's Krishna's allowing this.
Just like the other day you were telling, when somebody asked that, Prabhuji, what are you taking? Who made? He said Krishna made. So I was also wondering why he's telling Krishna made. So he said that he was taking strawberry shake or something. So he said Krishna made the strawberries. So he is giving directly the... So nice, very true. Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhu, does you want to go?
I was just wondering a question. Sometimes even though we hear instructions, nice instructions, and it's logical, and we know that it's if we act on it, it will give us the proper fruit. Why do we hesitate and have doubts? And sometimes we really worry and become anxious about following, and just not willing to accept it. Take our time. Why is it that we experience doubts?
I said it's okay to take our time. There's no, because so that it is natural. At the same time, one factor which helps like anything in this regard is to have association of those who are already following or who have given up those hesitations and whatever else keeping them away from it. So those who are acting in that way, that's why we have to help each other. When you are enthusiastic to dance, it kind of gave all. So actually the association of each other, that's what is our hope. Yeah, truly. So I do something nice. Let's say I am very enthused about Tulasi or about Charnamrita and all. Someone else is very enthusiastic about Sankirtan, like dancing in the Kirtan. Someone else is very enthusiastic about attending Srimad Bhagavatam class. So his enthusiasm will affect, both of us. None of us can be perfect in everything or be very good in everything. Like here when I come, so I see that book distribution is so prominent, So I also feel, we also should increase, It's like really, it like comes as I was feeling like guilty only, Prabhu. My God, so much. On the other hand, someone else, like somewhere else, we may go and they may be doing a lot of devotee care, or somewhere else they may be doing a lot of rural preaching, like building temples, small temples and centers. So it's like that, there are so many facets in Krishna Consciousness. So we need each other's association, especially amongst brahmacharis. Yes, like in the ashram, that's what happens. So in fact, just today morning only I was asking Kautukarnapu, is there another apartment available in this place so that if more devotees, and also like this youth preaching is going on, so I saw that last year we did retreats for some of the youths. Now some of them are already coming part of Sunday programs. Some of them are chanting 16 rounds and aspiring to get initiated. So I was so happy actually seeing all this. Prabhu himself and now he's here, so that's so good. So, and now also we are seeing very eager new individuals, like new boys and girls who are attending. And like many of them have agreed to come for the retreat this coming weekend. So obviously we look forward to, so that kind of thing is there. Like now, and where am I getting confidence and enthusiasm? Because I see like in Boston and Dallas and in Brooklyn, they're doing it. In Boston now they have got 2, actually 3. One is inside the temple and 2 outside. 3 BYS centers, 18 devotees actually. So 4 years back none, now 18. And some of them want to join full time. So similarly in Dallas, like there are devotees, then in Brooklyn. Like, so then, like, seeing each other's example, actually, it's positive as well as negative. Positive means, like, we get enthusiasm. Okay, see, they are doing, he is doing, I can also do. And negative means, see, he could overcome it, or whatever obstacles he could face it. He still took a leap of faith. So let me also do. So both ways we can actually. So that this inspiration which we can mutually share in friendship with each other, this helps us overcome even desire for sense gratification. What to say of inhibitions in spiritual life? This is given in 11.3.30 in Bhagavatam. Parasparanukathanam pavanam avadesha. So for a sadhaka, association of sincere sadhakas who are madhyamadikaris is the greatest gift in life. Sometimes people ask me, or devotees like us, you have been practicing for the last couple of decades, so much this and that. Has Krishna actually given you back to God? And has he shown you that he will send, like, what? What's your enthusiasm? Yeah, where is the assurance? At least here, like, they even give a system, a green card or something. So, how are you hopeful? So, like I was saying, Vijay Prabhu, he's so heartily glorifying Vaishika Prabhu several times. Actually, this is spiritual world. So I was sharing to these devotees sometime that Prabhu Krishna has given me relationships with many of my superiors and with many of my equals, which is non-envious. And I love to see them progress and be glorified and achieve success, and they are receiving mercy and they are happy to see me. And we want the world's welfare to happen. This is already spiritual world, because this is the nature of relationships in spiritual world. And I am able to see that if I can be sincere, that then sometime in future, the spiritual world also be there. So this association and friendship with each other, in which we get inspired by sincere. It's not just a devotee always excels, but even when he struggles to again get up, he falls down on the ground, again with the help of the same ground he gets up, right? Let me get back to my feet. So that sincerity, that enthusiasm, those leaps of faith, they actually fill our heart with great juice. Even in a married life, it's just in the beginning that the husband and wife are boy and girl. Later on, they become like friends, companions to each other. So similarly, in brahmacharya ashram or in the life of any sadhaka, when they develop that companionship, trustworthy friendship, that enhances their strength in Krishna consciousness like anything. I hope that helps. Hare Krishna. Vantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Enjoy Gautam I always say it's worth doing any service to get Kautukarna bros.
Vijay Prabhu ki Jai. Prabhupada ki Jai.